Thank you, ma'am. Tonight we're going to talk about powerless. Let me get set up real quick. Feeling powerless is the result of yielding to fearful thinking. And if we look at, instead of just focusing on this word powerless, if we focus on that, fearful thinking, that's basically what it is. It's not that you're totally powerless, you can't do anything. You get stuck in this fearful thinking. But as principle one, realize I'm not God. I admit that I am powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing and that my life is unmanageable. It's happy are those who know they are spiritually poor, Matthew 5:3. We admitted we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors and that our lives have become unmanageable. For I know good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. We're actually going to be working on the back side of the sheet first. I didn't notice, and I've done this backwards. But it's real easy to realize that we're not God. You know, we admit we're powerless to control our tendency, that we do the wrong things, and that our lives are unmanageable. It's like I said, it's not that it's totally unmanageable. We allow fearful thoughts to get within our heads, and it distracts us. But this doesn't mean in any way that you are totally broken beyond repair. There is no such thing as that. It only means that you're at the beginning. In the beginning, you saw pretty rainbows, and now you're starting to see a little storm clouds, and you're starting to see a little bit of lightning. You're starting to see a little thunder. So we start to change only if we allow it in the first place. We talked about change before. Everybody hates change, but it's so easy for us to change a routine for ourselves when it sees fitting for us. So tonight we're going to focus on the 4 actions. Those are on the backside. And 2 things that we need to stop doing to help us in our recoveries and also help us just to get through some life situations that happens. These actions in which we're about to talk about can be used in any situation. It's not just addiction. It can be used in depression, anxiety. And like I said, it can be used in everyday life. Sometimes I have to stop on Ambassador and just take a deep breath and remember some of this stuff. And it's not always easy. But noticing these things as they happen makes it easier for you to deal with it right then and there than waiting a week and letting 7 days pass and everything get built up, and then you're beyond almost control. First thing we need to do, we need to stop denying the pain. We said that our denial has at least 6 negative effects. It disables our feelings, it wastes our energy, it negates our growth, it isolates us from God, it alienates us from our healthy relationships. It never takes you away from the bad relationships. It always takes you away from the healthy ones. And it's going to lengthen your pain. And this is easy to accept when your pain is greater than your fear. It's when you get to the point to where you're hurting so much, nothing can hurt you no more. Because in Psalm 6, 2 through 3, David talks about a time when he came to the end of his emotion and physical resources. He said, "Pity me, O Lord, for I am weak. Heal me, for my body is sick, and I am upset and disturbed. My mind is filled with apprehension and with gloom." When David's pain finally surpassed his fear, he was able to face his denial and feel the reality of his pain. That's a lot right there for us to be able, and sometimes that takes months, sometimes that takes weeks, and sometimes that could all be done in 30 seconds, and you just realize it. But in the same way, if you want to get rid of the pain, we learn we must have to face it. And in order to face it, first we need to acknowledge it. Things don't go away by themselves. We have to be able to ask for help. Pride should never be an option. Say, I have this on my own. We have to use meditation to calm us down. Breathe, count to 10, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, whatever it takes. I got to count them high numbers sometimes. We need to shift our focus to see things in a different light. We need to close our eyes so that whenever you open them, you see what is ahead and what wasn't just behind you that you were facing. We need to reflect on other times in which you overcame the same thing. We have to realize this isn't our first rodeo, and 90% of the stuff that we're going to go through from here to the end. We've been through it all before. We just need to start to recognize, hey, we've been through this. We know it doesn't work. We know it works, and we know where we want to be when it's over with. And we need to seek support to help any of the leftover feelings we may have. You know, just because the trial is over with and things are better, your feelings are still your feelings. You may still have bouts of sorrow and depression. Might not be as bad, but it'll still be there. The next action is we need to stop playing God. You're either going to serve God or yourself. That's it. Those are your two options right there. You can't do both. Matthew 6:24 tells us you cannot be a slave to two masters. You will hate one and you'll love the other. You will be more loyal to one and you'll despise the other. See, the term for serving ourselves, that's where you hear that word flesh in the Bible. A lot of people ask me, what does it mean, my flesh? You're serving yourself. It's something that you want to do and you end up doing it. And the flesh is the Bible's word for our unperfected human nature, which is basically our sinful nature. It goes all the way back to the beginning in the Garden of Eden. That's where sin started. That's where our sinful nature came. The flesh is what controls what we say, what we hear, and what we eat. Like that king cake, I had to have a piece. I got me a little piece, but I had to have a piece. My flesh was telling me, you need sugar. But whenever we rely on the flesh instead of God, your faith is going to start to weaken. And when that happens, all your hope goes out the door. There are two jobs. There's God's job and there's my job. I can't do God's, but God can help me do mine. I can't do both. I don't want to do both. Who would want to actually be God? We watched that movie, The Shack, where the guy thought it was real easy. And he was like, here's your two kids. Which one goes to hell? Which one goes to heaven? That's the kind of decisions God has to make. I don't want his job. But with that, sometimes people say, well, it sounds easy. I can make that decision. It's not as easy as you think. Just stop and think of all the options we already have before you think you can make that decision. Taste, the different tastes we have, the different textures we have, the aromas we have, the way that king cake tasted, the way I smelt that Bavarian cream when I walked in, that texture of that icing on top. Just that alone, I couldn't say no to. You think I could play God? Or whenever it's 2 a.m. and you're still on Netflix binge watching something, knowing you have to be to work at 8 o'clock. I've done it. I got about 2 hours. I can get out with 2 hours sleep. When I was younger, I used to run like that. Oh, man, I don't have to be home yet. I can go 2 more hours. But we need to admit that we're not God and that our lives depend on Him. Then whenever we finally empty ourselves, God's going to have more room to start putting more godly things within us. He's going to give us more Christian-like stimulus around us. You're going to start to hang around people. I'm not just saying Jesus people, but you're going to hang around people that's going to lift you up and not beat you down. We all have that one friend that the minute you call them, oh, man, you got a flat tire? My motor blew up last week. You don't have that. You'll have somebody say, look, we're going to talk you through it. I'm going to lift you up through it. Next, we need to start admitting of our powerlessness. Got that word out. The lust of power is rooted in our strengths, but it's not rooted in our strengths, but it's rooted in our weaknesses. We need to realize that our human weakness and trying to quit doing something by ourselves, it don't work. Because what we do is we just continue to add more and add more. Well, I'm not doing that no more. No, but now I'm doing this. So we have to admit sometimes that we're powerless and that we have to turn our lives over to God, and He is the only solution. See, Jesus knew how difficult this was whenever He said this. With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. When we keep doing the same things that we don't want to do, and then we fail, we kind of say, well, what happened there? But we're doing the same thing over and over. We're going to talk about that a little later. We're going to talk about sanity, how we do the same things over and over, and we expect a different outcome. But once you start to realize certain things, your life can come into focus. And once things get focused, things get a lot clearer. With a lot of us addicts, we say the smoke cleared one day. I've heard that so many times in people's testimony. I woke up one day and the smoke just cleared. That's all it was. We had that one moment of clarity. So how many of y'all already broke your New Year's resolution? I have. I broke it on the first day. I was like, I'm not going to have no sweets for the first month of January. I woke up that morning. Said, man, I still got some Christmas candy in the freezer. I broke it right there. So in a sense, I had to admit right there, my life is pretty unmanageable because I can't resist that candy in the freezer. It's the only reason we consider that something is wrong or that we need to talk to somebody. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you are teachable. And I've been saying that word a lot lately. We have to be teachable. We can't think we know it all. You may specialize in a certain area. I get that. I had a lawn service for 20 years. I don't need no one to tell me how to run a lawn service. But in the same sense, he may say something that makes sense to me. I still need to be teachable. I still need to be able to listen. Because with that, you can overcome anything. Because you can just be having a normal conversation with someone like we do at our well on Sundays, talking football, and something's going to click in my head. It's like what he said, man, it just got to me. And it wasn't no big sermon. It didn't happen in a church with 5,000 people in it. It happened with 3 guys, 2 that can't hear and 1 that talks too loud. I think that's why my buddies like me so much, you know. But imagine what your life would be like if the first time someone offered you a helping hand or went to speak into your life, you just walked away. See, that happened to me. Talk about that a lot. You know, they see homeless people and they're like, well, they want to live like that. Oh, if I give them money, they're going to spend it on drugs. That's what I did. But one time somebody gave me money and they reached me. So it only took that one time for me. See, Proverbs tells us that problems far too big for me to solve are piled higher than my head. Meanwhile, my sins, too many to count, have caught up with me, and I'm ashamed to look up. That sounds familiar. You could put that into any perspective into your life, because there is at one point you keep your head down. There's a story in the Bible about the Pharisee and the poor man. And all he could do is throw his hands up and say, God, forgive a sinner. And the Pharisee was up there saying, well, I did this and this and this. But that's all he could do. He couldn't even look up to the heavens. It was just, that's the humble part of your heart that we need to seek out. So only whenever your pain is greater than your fear, you will honestly take a first step in admitting that parts of your life are unmanageable. Not total shambles, just unmanageable. So tonight we're going to get into our acrostic Powerless. Let me see. First letter is P. It's pride. We start to see that we are no longer trapped by our pride. Amen. Pride ends in a fall, while humility brings honor. This is strong. This is probably the only thing I kept in the part of the lesson. It says ignorance plus power plus pride is a deadly mixture. And us old addicts or people who drink, we can relate to that very good, because that's exactly what it did to us. It gave us that power trip, 10 foot tall, bulletproof. We can relate to that. But our false pride undermines our faith, and it cuts us off from God. But worse, it even cuts us off from others. So if God is trying to use somebody else to reach you, you've done cut them off. When God's presence is welcome, there is no room for pride. He makes us aware of our own truth. The Bible doesn't say God hates much, but pride is one of the things that God hates. The next one, the only ifs. How many times have y'all ran through that in your head? If only if. I'm not even going to list any, because everybody knows what the only if is. The only thing I'm going to say about the only ifs is don't get caught up in it, because only if I would have gotten saved at the age of 15 when the first person in my life tried, I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. Right. So if you get caught up in that, you have to also look that timeline of your whole life can change. But how reluctantly the mind consents to reality. But whenever we admit that we are powerless, we start walking in the truth rather than living in a fantasy land. A fantasy land where Whataburger and carrot cake has no calories. That's how I relate to that right there. And you can put however you want in there. Where a gallon of gas is 25 cents or coffee is free, whatever. But that's what it puts us in. Because Luke tells us, it says, whatever is covered up will be uncovered, and every secret will be known. So then whatever you said in the dark will be heard in the broad daylight. And we've all heard that. And it's like, I think Mark Twain said, if you never tell a lie, you never have to remember anything. Because you always know the truth. So this is another big one. The W is for worry. Worrying, man. Whenever we actually stop and think, what does worry really accomplish? Nothing at all. It rattles us to our core. It brings out every trigger that can possibly hit us, and it makes them only ifs all of a sudden sound like I'm gonna do's. So the only thing we get out of worry is isolation, depression, anxiety, grieving, and me whip out a bag of Doritos and wipe that thing out. And I'm talking to Big Sam's family bag, me. But that's what worrying does to me, because I do have a tendency to stress eat at times. But all the worrying is, what I had to realize is all that worrying is a form of me not trusting God, because I know the truth now. I can understand why the Brian of old, or the young Brian, did what he did. He didn't know the truth. This Brian knows the truth. Shouldn't be whipping out a bag of Doritos and wiping it out. Should be going to God and going to Jesus and say, make them Doritos stale where they taste bad. That way I don't eat them. But, Gammy gave me a framed picture, and it has a serenity prayer on it. And I remember someone saying over here, I won't say his name, but he said that every morning when he wakes up, he sees something, and that sets his day. When I sit at my office and I look out at my desk, that's where I have that picture hung, where I see it every day. When I look the other way, I have my life verse hung, where I see it all the time. So when I start to worry about this new job and me screwing everything up, I can look up, I see the serenity prayer, and I see Job 5:17, and it helps center me. Because Jesus can take all them worries away. My Jesus heals. He doesn't hide anything. He doesn't halfway anything. He didn't touch a leper and just heal a finger on that wilted hand. The whole hand was healed. So don't be anxious about tomorrow. God will take care of tomorrow. We got to live one day at a time, and we hear that a lot in recovery. And it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to live 1 second at a time, especially whenever you're fighting an anxiety attack. That's not easy, because that 1 second, you done tried to grab your breath 50 times and you can't get it. The next thing is the E. It's escape. Before we admitted we were powerless, we tried to escape and hide by getting involved in unhealthy relationships, abusing drugs, abusing alcohol, by eating or not eating, by over shopping, and I could probably name 1,000 more, and it just goes on and on and on. I have a tenant that comes in every once in a while, and she picks at me because she'll see my CR shirt, and she'll tell me, she says, you are doing good work. I said, one day we're going to talk about your Starbucks coffee, your $15 coffee. I'm like, $15? Why? And she gave me the list, and I'm like, we're going to talk about that one day. And she laughs about it. And she came in one day and says, you know what? You poked me the other day and it hurt. She says, because I cannot function without this coffee. I said, so you see how easy it is for someone that is addicted to a substance, because it's not the caffeine in that coffee. It's that sugar candy, liquid candy that you're drinking.
That was just one drink.
One drink was $15. She says she gives her a 10 and a 5, and she gets a little. And I'm like, dude, I get mad at Jet if I pay more than $6. I feel no. I'm gonna start going to the ShopRite, bruh. Go to that ShopRite. Get that good coffee that's been burning for a year. For light, right? For light is capable of showing up. Everything for what it is, for what it really is. It is even possible for all it has happened to you, for light to turn the thing that shines upon into light also. The R, another big one, resentments. We all have them, and it doesn't matter. Most of the time, It's with someone that passed away. That is our hardest resentment to get over. Because even though they're gone, we're still holding grudges against them. And I get that. I have a couple myself. But if we suppress them and we allow them to fester, they're going to turn into almost an emotional cancer. Like most cancer, you don't know it's there until you just go in for a routine checkup and they take your blood work and they're like, man, your white blood cells are high. Let's start prodding. And then they find out that you have something. Resentments are the same way. You wake up every day, oh, I'm good. And then somebody passes by you in the store wearing a certain kind of perfume you smell and you go into a rage because you remember that person that used to wear that. It's happened to me. It has happened to me. Paul tells us in Ephesians, if in your anger do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. You'll come to understand that letting go of resentments by offering forgiveness to those who have hurt you are not just freeing the person that harmed you, but they're freeing you also. You go make amends and you think that amends is going to help you, and you don't even know it. By giving that amends, you release that person from somebody else who blamed a certain person for something all their life, and then come to find out during that amends, I was the one dragging that person down. And I freed up another person and allowed forgiveness. See, forgiveness, it can be contagious like that. It takes one person. But if we try to maintain our false power, we become isolated and loneliness. That's part of our recovery we don't really talk a lot about. I think this is the only lesson that talks about loneliness. That's the one thing nobody ever told me I would feel when I started to get sober, was the loneliness. Because there's no one left in your life. I was down to my wife, who I really didn't talk to, my two kids that didn't want to look at me, and a cat that every time I tried to pet it bit me. You know, but whenever you begin to admit you are powerless and you start to face that reality, you're going to find that you don't have to be alone. Loneliness is your choice. We all know now that we always have a friend in Jesus. There was a song when I was a kid that they would sing all the time. And we never walk alone because we always have Jesus. But back then, those of us that were, before Christ, BC, loneliness was rough. We didn't have nobody. So the best thing for loneliness is to get involved and build your village. Build your village, people. I'm telling y'all, everybody needs at least one person they can talk to about anything and everything, and know that that person is going to keep all their garbage in the trunk and not go anywhere with it. And I know y'all going to get tired of hearing me say this. Start a little group with some people. Some people need that. You may say, well, I really don't need a group. I don't need a support group, but maybe somebody needs you. Maybe somebody needs to kind of hear your story and say, hey, look at him. I want to be where he is. And I'm like, yeah, but do you want to go through what they went through to get to where they're at? So by having that little bitty group right there, you can stop a lot. We can't fix each other, but we could look at each other and say, bro, I wouldn't do that if I were you, and just leave it at that. Because we also have to understand that most people you're going to come in contact with at CR is unchurched. That's right. I walked into a CR unchurched. Wow. And for a long time at the first CR I was going to, I kind of kept tracking. In 1 year, there was over 60 people that walked into that CR that was unchurched. That after going to Celebrate Recovery for about a month or two, they found them a church. Because I would tell them, don't pick this church. Go to your church. And wherever you go, whenever you're going to get there, God's going to bring you somewhere. You have to have a starting place. If you don't know much about Jesus, you don't want to walk into a church that's going to preach nothing but theology. You're not going to understand any of that. So we have to continue to love each other with true brotherly love. And we don't forget to be kind to strangers. That is the part everybody fights. For some of us who have done this have entertained angels without even realizing it. I came out of Home Depot one time, and it was pouring down raining, and there was a woman standing outside, and her husband, her boyfriend or whatever, he says, I'm going to run in and use the bathroom. And she says, don't leave me. They're going to make me leave. She was homeless. Home Depot, they chase them out from under the trees, get off my property and everything. But when I looked deep into her eyes and I noticed how blue them eyes were, that's the first thing I thought. That's an angel in disguise. And I have to see how people treat her. Because it's like, we don't know who she is. We don't know where she's been. We don't know anything about her. Doesn't give us the right to say, hey, bum, go stand in the rain. You could use, because some of the men were like that. They were like, well, she could go stand in the rain. Yeah, she smelled. She lived on the streets. And I'm like, bruh, go mind your business. Go get your wood and go build your fence and shut up. Because sometimes you have to take the initiative sometime and stand up for the weak. Because everybody in here has that one person that stood up for them when they were at their weakness. And we have to remember that not all of God's angels appear to us with wings. And no, a lot of them, you see it in their eyes. The next one, emptiness. When you admit you're powerless, you also understand that you have emptiness. Remember when the snow hit last year, we were all powerless to move around like we used to. We were just stuck. Everything was canceled. My buddy in Canada was laughing at me because he was digging out of a 2-foot snowstorm the night before. And he took me pictures and showed me a 6-foot walls of snow so he could get in and out. He has a lake. In the summertime, he takes the boat to the store. In the wintertime, he takes the snowmobile to the store. And he was laughing at me. But it shut us down. Go back and imagine what kind of emptiness you had when that happened. Just being stuck in the house. Yeah, we had phones, we had apps, we had TV, we had this, we had that. But that job that you hated so much, you couldn't wait to get back to it because staying at home was driving you crazy. And then we got back at the job, and what did we do? We complained that we didn't have long enough time to stay home. So in that time of that snow, that emptiness, we didn't use it properly. We didn't rest. Jesus said, my purpose is to give life in all of its fullness. So we have to let Jesus fill our emptiness. We have to tell him how we feel. Jesus cares. He doesn't have voicemail, call waiting. His text never has just delivered written underneath it. It's in real time. He knows. He heard you. Prayer takes time sometimes. Yes, it might take a long time for that prayer, but he knows what's going on. The next one, selfishness. Becoming self-centered. I know we can all think of that time. When I was told for the first time to pray, when somebody came up to me and they said, man, you need to learn, you need to pray. I didn't know how to pray. I was raised up in a denomination, we had 5 prayers. And you said them. And that was it. I didn't know. All I had to do is say, hey, God, I'm kind of having a problem here, bruh. Yeah, I call God bruh. Because in my younger years, trust me, I called him worse. So I call God bruh every once in a while. But Luke tells us whoever clings to his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life shall save it. Simply said, selfishness is at the heart of most of our problems and every problem between two people whenever they get in an argument. There's some form of selfishness there. I should have used words like help me, forgive me, and guide me, not just give, oh, well, I hope you're blessed and walk away. I say all the time, you know why people will pray for you so quickly? Because prayer is free. And I know that's rough and that's real harsh to say like that, but it is. We're really quick. If God is really, if they're praying for someone to come help them and God put it on your heart to be that person, be that person. We see on the thing on Sundays, whenever we do in our tithes and offering, it says God loves a cheerful giver. And it's like, man, I've always had a problem with that because I don't think people interpret it the right way. God loves you to give, yes, but it's to give unselfishly. Yeah. It's to give somebody $10 knowing you have 20 in your pocket, and then you use that $20 on a blowout to get a tire fixed, and now, man, I wish I had my $10. You see where I'm coming from? That's where that selfish giver, that's the part we need to get rid of, that little bit of selfishness. The first S is separation. The last thing we need to admit whenever we are powerless is we will have some separation. You never really found God. More than likely, you just noticed him. You know, he was with me even when I didn't believe in him. He saved me from near-death experiences. He actually kept me around people the 2 times that I almost OD'd that babysat me all night and kept me alive. Whenever I would mix all the drugs and the alcohol, and that was my breakfast and my lunch, when I was taking something to wake up and something to go to bed at night, God was there all along. I didn't have to find him. He was just waiting because that was me. Separation from God can be real, but it is never permanent. He seeks the lost. When we can't find God, we need to ask ourselves who moved. God didn't move. He's still in the same place. It's us that moved one way or the other. Romans tells us, "For I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from his love. Death can't and life can't. The angels won't. All the powers of hell itself cannot keep God's love away. Nothing will be able to separate us from the love of God demonstrated by the Lord Jesus Christ when he died on the cross." That is a mouthful right there. Jesus died for all. And that's the only word I know of that in the Greek and the Hebrew and in the English is all the same. It's all. It's exactly the same. Oh yeah, that's the end of it. Okay. The power to change only comes from God's grace. So we have to ask ourselves, are we ready for healthy changes? Right. Not just a jet coffee instead of a Starbucks. Am I ready for a healthy change? I'm not going to the gym with you, and I'm not preaching the gym. Because I've noticed one thing. Every morning I drive through rain, and the people that turn into McDonald's turn in real fast and get out my way, and the people that turn into Cajun Fitness take forever to take that left and go in the gym. But are you ready for a healthy change? Are you at that point to where you're going to stop denying that you do have some pain? Are we ready to stop playing God? That's the hard part, because I know I struggle with that a lot also. I want to give God the hard stuff, but I want to keep the easy stuff for myself. And are we ready to start to admit that we are powerless in some part of our life? Not totally out of control. We may just lack a little self-control here or there. So if we start admitting that our life is unmanageable, start talking about it in your group tonight. You know, I want to encourage you to start taking these lessons just as not recovery mumbo jumbo. And a lot of people think Celebrate Recovery, oh, that's just drug addiction mumbo jumbo. No, this is guidance. This is a discipleship. They can change you. They can change the person on the side of you. And how do I know? Because they changed me. And that is Powerless. And before we wrap it up with the Serenity Prayer, I just want to open it up, see if anybody has anything to share.